Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. My name is Tom Spark and I've been reviewing VPNs for 5 years, reviewing over 60 VPN providers. Here in the channel, we talk about VPNs. Today we're going to be checking out which VPNs on Android have too many permissions, too many tracking agents. You don't really want to be using a VPN, in my opinion, that has trackers on it. Some of my top rated VPNs here on the channel, at least most of the ones I recommend using, do not have any Android trackers. However, that's not the same for every Android VPN application out there. So today we're going to be checking out lots of VPNs on the Android App Store, and we're going to be using Exodus to see what kind of trackers are implemented in VPN applications on Android, as well as what permissions are required. Now, I do think that having zero trackers is more important than having a super low amount of permissions. I think the lower amount of permissions is probably the better. However, depending on the application developer, permissions can kind of depend and vary a little bit based on, what the developer thinks is needed to run the application. However, for trackers, I don't really think there's much excuse there. A VPN application, in my opinion, shouldn't have any trackers. So let's go ahead and see what's going on here. So basically what I've done, I've installed a lot of the popular VPNs on BlueStacks, and I'm looking at them through Exodus, which shows the trackers and permissions and stuff like that. So if you guys are familiar, some of my top rated VPNs here on the channel are stuff like TorGuard, WeVPN, AirVPN. Those are my tier 1 VPN providers, and pretty much everything else kind of falls below them in various different ways. So the good news is that most of my top rated VPNs, Eddie, for AirVPN has 0 trackers, which is excellent. And they only have 4 permissions required, which is very, very good. Only 2 more permissions required than Exodus. So AirVPN, really good job here on their Android client, and not really surprising, the very reputable company that never really gets its due course, mostly because I only make 20% commissions from recommending them to you. So I'll make only like $1.25 or something if you decide to buy AirVPN. Of course, you can check out the links on the VPN tier list, whereas if I recommend something else, I would make a lot more money. So that's why you don't see any blogs really talking about AirVPN, even though it's very good and trustworthy. We can take a look at some other stuff here. Kind of looking at the tier list a little bit. We can see stuff like TorGuard also having 0 trackers. Now, honestly, it has a little bit more permissions than I would like. It's not as good as AirVPN, but if we take a look at some of the stuff, you can see the reasoning behind it for the most part. I do like, however, that it has 0 trackers, which I think is the most important part. Now, in comparison, we can take a look at some other things. I do want to take a look at none other than Nordvpn, because Nordvpn has had a history of weird leaks and security problems and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, no matter how much you tell a Nordvpn simp that their product they're using isn't good, they still think it's secure and trustworthy. Well, according to the Android application and the trackers and permissions required, it kind of tells a different story. Nordvpn has 6 trackers, whereas AirVPN and TorGuard VPN both have 0s. You can take a look at the trackers found, and it's all loaded with Google software, which is not very ideal if you care about privacy. Here's a full list of all the stuff here, and it's not a pretty story. But we can also take a look at some other stuff here as well, guys. Stuff like CyberGhost is loaded with trackers and 13 permissions. Yikes. I guess if you want to look at the details, here's some of the stuff. Once again, loaded with Google tracking software. Stuff like Cactus VPN isn't too bad, only 3 trackers. Stuff like Black VPN hasn't even been analyzed by Exodus, probably because it's so small. We have stuff like ExpressVPN still loaded with some trackers, some permissions. The trackers include some Google Crashlytics and stuff like that, which is pretty common. But still, we don't want to see any trackers if possible. We kind of see stuff like HideIVPN, which I reviewed recently, is actually quite a good service. Once again, 0 trackers. IBVPN, once again, 0 trackers. No one's really talking about these VPNs, even though they're pretty solid. We see stuff like IPVanish with 3 trackers, 11 permissions, some more kind of Google stuff there. Something like Movad, of course, which is very trustworthy. Not my favorite VPN in terms of streaming compatibility and some things like that. And I think their applications could use a little bit more powerful features and settings and customization. But very good here. 3 trackers on only 3 permissions, which I think is actually one of the best ones on this list. A little bit less permissions even than AirVPN. So very good job there. Nordvpn, 6 trackers, 12 permissions. Private internet access VPN, 0 trackers, very nice, but 10 permissions. Pure VPN, we have 8 trackers. Yikes! Look at all these trackers. Yikers! Not good, not good. We can take a look at a little bit more. It's kind of annoying how it always scrolls up. Secure VPN, 8 trackers. Strong VPN, 1 tracker, not too bad, 10 permissions. Surfshark, another really highly simped or shilled VPN, 5 trackers, 19 permissions. I bet you the Surfshark reviews you see on YouTube don't really mention that, do they? Don't think so. TorGuard, 0 trackers, 11 permissions. TunnelBear, 2 trackers. Turbo VPN, ironically, Turbo VPN, which is pretty much like a Chinese honeypot VPN, has less trackers than NordVPN and Surfshark. That's awkward. VPN Unlimited has tons of trackers, 8 trackers, 16 permissions. Not really surprising. This is a decent service, however, the logging policy is sketch. VPN-C, very nice, 0 trackers, 6 permissions. VPN Area, 0 trackers, 5 permissions. Have you guys noticed the trend here? It seems like all the VPNs I'm rating high on my tier list somehow don't have that much trackers, and they all have pretty much low permissions too. It's almost like my VPN tier list is actually picking VPNs that care about your privacy. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Viper VPN, unfortunately, 5 trackers, so I think they could definitely work on that. WeVPN, it's pretty highly rated in the tier list, only has 2 trackers. If I'm gonna guess, it's Crashalytics, yep, and that as well. And Windscribe has 2 trackers as well. If we look at that, 103 permissions. Oh, that's Google Play Store, I was about to say. Windscribe, I think, has 2 trackers as well, 17 permissions, which is quite a lot. You know, I think with some of these applications are a little more advanced in the things they do. I think they do have a little bit more permissions. So I'm not putting too much weight into that, but you know, Windscribe, one of the things about their website that is cool is they don't have that many trackers, and they kind of use self-hosted tracking software and stuff like that. But it is kind of disappointing to see that it does not have 0 trackers. So guys, anyways, what can we learn from this video? Well, we can learn from this video a couple things. Most of the top rated VPNs on my tier list have 0 trackers, which gives my tier list a lot of credibility, I think. We can also learn that most of the big VPN providers, stuff like ExpressVPN, Surfshark, NordVPN, CyberGhost, PureVPN, the list goes on. They all have a certain amount of trackers in them, which is not very good. A lot of other VPNs on my tier list as well, besides stuff like TorGuard, WeVPN, and AirVPN, which all did pretty good. A lot of the other options, IBVPN, VPN Area, VPN.ac, some of the other ones, high IPVPN on high on the tier list, high on tier 2, also have 0 trackers and low permissions. So that's about it, guys. I hope you learned a thing or two about VPNs and Android applications and tracking and stuff like that. You know, every VPN at the end of the day claims that it's the best and it's the most honest and it's the most private, but it really comes down to the data. What are VPNs tracking about you? What do they have installed in their applications that they don't really need? In my opinion, you probably shouldn't be using a VPN that has any trackers in the Android application. I do think for websites in the next video, things are going to be a little bit different. I don't think it's the end of the world if a VPN company has a website and they're using some kind of anonymized form of analytics software or something like that, because it's not really when you're using the application. I do think it is different when you're using the application that has trackers in it versus the website that has trackers, just trying to understand who's using the website and how. And then once you use the VPN application, it's like a separate process, not really related to it at all. So we do need to keep that in mind going into the next video. But I would be interested to hear your thoughts down in the comments down below, what you guys think of this one. And I'll see you again in the next video very soon.